I'll never forget the moment my world shattered. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang, and I saw my sister Rachel's name flash across the screen. Mom had passed away 3 days earlier and we were all still drowning in grief. I expected Rachel to be calling about funeral arrangements or maybe just to cry together like we used to when we were kids. Instead, what came through that phone turned my blood to ice. "The lawyer wants to meet with us tomorrow about Mom's will," Rachel said, her voice strangely flat, emotionless. There was something in her tone that made my stomach drop, something that didn't sound like the sister I'd grown up with. Something cold and calculated that I'd never heard before. I should have known then. I should have felt it in my bones that something terrible was coming. But I was too consumed by grief, too focused on the fact that our mother, the woman who raised us alone after Dad died, who worked 2 jobs to keep us fed, who never missed a single school play or soccer game, was gone forever. How could I have known that the real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows? The next day I sat in that sterile law office, my hands shaking as the lawyer slid a document across the mahogany table. My sister sat across from me, her face a perfect mask of composure while mine was still swollen from crying. As I read the words on that paper, the floor seemed to drop out from beneath me. According to this will, Rachel was getting everything. The house, the savings, Mom's jewelry, even the small investment account Mom had scraped together. I was left with nothing. Not even a photograph. Not even a letter. Nothing. "This can't be right," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Mom would never." But the lawyer just cleared his throat uncomfortably and looked away. Rachel finally met my eyes, and what I saw there made me feel sick. Triumph. Cold, calculated triumph. This was the sister who used to braid my hair before school. The sister who held my hand during Dad's funeral. The sister I would have died for. And she had just stolen everything from me while our mother lay dying. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every moment of Mom's last months, every hospital visit, every conversation. And that's when the pieces started falling into place, when I began to see the truth that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The golden child and the forgotten daughter. To understand how we got here, I need to take you back to the beginning, to the family dynamics that shaped everything that followed. Rachel was always the golden child. Beautiful, confident, charming. She could walk into a room and command everyone's attention without even trying. I was the quiet one, the bookish daughter who preferred libraries to parties, who stuttered when speaking to strangers, who never quite fit in anywhere. But Mom loved us both. I truly believed that. She never played favorites, never made me feel less than Rachel even when everyone else did. After Dad died when I was 12 and Rachel was 15, Mom became everything to us. She was mother and father, cheerleader and disciplinarian, our entire world wrapped up in one exhausted, loving woman who smelled like vanilla and worked herself to the bone to give us a good life. Rachel went to college on a full scholarship, studied business, and landed a high-paying job in marketing. She married a successful lawyer, lived in a beautiful suburban house, and posted perfect family photos on social media. I became a teacher, married my high school sweetheart Tom, and built a modest but happy life. We didn't have much money, but we had love, and I thought that was enough. I thought Mom was proud of me too in her own way. When Mom got sick 2 years ago, stage 4 cancer, the doctors said too advanced for much hope, I rearranged my entire life to care for her. Tom and I lived 40 minutes from Mom's house, but I made that drive every single day. I took a leave of absence from teaching. I sat with her through chemotherapy sessions, held her hand through the night terrors, cleaned up when she was too weak to make it to the bathroom. I read to her, played her favorite music, reminded her of all the beautiful memories we'd shared. Rachel visited on weekends sometimes. She was busy with work, she said. Her kids had activities. Her husband needed her. And Mom understood because Mom always understood everything. She never complained, never asked for more than people could give. But I saw the way her face lit up when Rachel walked in, heard the way her voice got stronger when her golden child was near. Some things never change, I suppose, even at the end. If you're connecting with this story, please subscribe to our channel for more real-life family stories that touch the heart. The subtle manipulation. The changes started small, so small I almost missed them. About 6 months before Mom died, when she was having more bad days than good ones, Rachel started visiting more often. Suddenly, she was the devoted daughter, showing up with flowers and expensive gifts, taking selfies with Mom for her social media, talking loudly about all the sacrifices she was making to be there. First, I was grateful. The burden of caregiving is crushing, and having my sister there to share it felt like a blessing. But then I started noticing things. Rachel would ask me to leave the room when the lawyer came to discuss Mom's paperwork. She'd schedule doctor's appointments without telling me, then claim she forgot to pass along the information. She started bringing Mom's mail to her house to help organize things, she said. One afternoon, I arrived at Mom's house to find Rachel and Mom in deep conversation, papers spread across the kitchen table. The moment I walked in, Rachel quickly gathered everything up, shoving documents into a folder with a guilty expression that disappeared almost instantly behind her practiced smile. "Just helping Mom sort through some old bills," she said smoothly. Mom looked confused, tired, her eyes foggy from the pain medication she was on almost constantly now. "Mom, are you okay?" I asked, kneeling beside her chair. She patted my hand weakly. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. So tired." Her words were slightly slurred, and I realized she was more medicated than usual. When had that happened? I'd only been gone for 3 hours to teach a morning class. I'd refused to give up teaching entirely, needing those few hours a week to feel like myself, to feel like I still had a purpose beyond watching my mother fade away. "The doctor increased her pain medication," Rachel explained, seeing my concern. "She was in so much pain this morning, weren't you, Mom?" Mom nodded vaguely, her eyes already drifting closed. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it, and I was so tired myself, so emotionally drained from months of caregiving, that I pushed the feeling aside. Looking back now, I can see it all so clearly. The way Rachel started controlling access to Mom. The way she'd suddenly become the primary contact with all of Mom's doctors and lawyers. The way she'd show up when Mom was most medicated, most confused, most vulnerable. But at the time I was just relieved to have help. I was too exhausted, too grief-stricken to see the manipulation happening right in front of my eyes. The devastating truth revealed. After that meeting with the lawyer, I couldn't let it go. Something was screaming inside me that this wasn't right, that Mom would never have cut me out completely. So I did what I had to do. I hired my own lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Margaret Chin who specialized in estate disputes. When I told her the situation, her expression darkened. "How long was your mother on serious pain medication?" she asked. I told her. "About 6 months, the same time Rachel's visits increased." Margaret nodded slowly. "And these changes to the will, when were they dated?" I checked the document with shaking hands. 5 months ago. Right in the middle of Mom's heaviest medication period, when she was barely lucid most days, when the cancer had spread to her brain and she sometimes didn't even recognize us. Margaret filed a challenge to the will, and what we uncovered during discovery made me physically ill. There were medical records showing Mom's cognitive decline during the exact period when the will was changed. There were emails between Rachel and the lawyer, a friend of her husband's it turned out, discussing how to expedite the process while she's still able to sign. There were bank statements showing Rachel had already transferred money from Mom's accounts into her own name weeks before Mom died. But the worst part, the part that still keeps me awake at night, was the video. One of Mom's neighbors, Mrs. Patterson, had a doorbell camera that captured the day Rachel brought the lawyer to the house. In the footage, you could see Rachel practically carrying Mom to the door, our mother's legs barely working, her head lolling to the side. You could see the lawyer glance around nervously, see Rachel's whispered conversation with him before they went inside. They were in there for less than 15 minutes. 15 minutes to steal my mother's entire legacy. When the court ordered depositions, Rachel finally had to face questions under oath. I sat in that room and watched my sister, the woman who used to defend me from bullies, who taught me how to ride a bike, who I'd loved my entire life, lie and lie and lie. She claimed Mom was perfectly lucid that day. She claimed Mom had always intended to leave everything to her. She claimed I'd abandoned Mom in her final months, that I barely visited, that I didn't care. I wanted to scream. I wanted to show everyone the photos on my phone. Thousands of them, documenting every day I spent by Mom's side. I wanted to call all the nurses who knew me by name, who'd seen me sleeping in hospital chairs, who'd watched me spoon-feed my mother when she was too weak to feed herself. But Margaret told me to stay calm, that the evidence would speak for itself. And it did. Justice in the courtroom. The trial was brutal. Sitting in that courtroom day after day, listening to lawyers dissect my mother's life, her final wishes, her mental state, it felt like losing her all over again. But this time I wasn't alone. Tom sat beside me every single day, holding my hand when the testimony got too painful. My former colleagues wrote character letters. Mom's doctors testified about her cognitive decline. Mrs. Patterson explained what she'd seen. Rachel's lawyer tried everything. He painted me as a jealous sister, bitter about not being the favorite, trying to steal money I didn't deserve. He suggested I'd manipulated Mom too, that my constant presence was its own form of coercion. He brought up every mistake I'd ever made, every argument Rachel and I had ever had, trying to make me look like the villain in this story. But then Margaret played her trump card. She'd subpoenaed Mom's medical records from the last year of her life, including detailed notes from her doctors. One note, written by Mom's primary oncologist just 2 weeks before the will was changed, stated clearly, "Patient is experiencing significant cognitive impairment due to brain metastases and high-dose opioid treatment. She is confused about time and place, does not consistently recognize family members, and is not capable of making complex decisions at this time." The courtroom went silent. Rachel's face went white. Her lawyer asked for a recess and I knew we'd won. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow, empty, like someone had scooped out my insides and left nothing but grief and betrayal. The judge's ruling came 3 weeks later. The altered will was declared invalid due to undue influence and lack of mental capacity. Mom's original will, the one she'd written years ago when she was healthy and clear-minded, was reinstated. In that will, she'd split everything evenly between Rachel and me, exactly as I'd always believed she would. The house would be sold and proceeds divided. The savings accounts split. Even her jewelry would be shared between us, pieces for each of us to remember her by. But the judge didn't stop there. He'd seen the evidence of Rachel's manipulation, the transfer of funds, the taking advantage of a dying woman. He ordered Rachel to repay money she'd taken, added penalties for her actions, and made a statement from the bench that still echoes in my mind. Elder abuse takes many forms, but it is perhaps most heartbreaking when it comes from those we trust most, our own children. Rachel left the courtroom without looking at me. Her perfect mask had finally cracked, and what I saw underneath was someone I didn't recognize. Or maybe someone I'd never truly known at all. The cost of betrayal. The money was returned. The house was sold. Everything was divided exactly as Mom had originally intended. By any objective measure, justice was served. But as I sat in the empty house one last time before the new owners took possession, surrounded by boxes of memories and the ghost of my mother's presence, I realized that winning the legal battle didn't heal the wounds Rachel had carved into my heart. I kept thinking about all the moments we'd shared growing up. Rachel teaching me to braid hair, both of us giggling in front of the bathroom mirror. Rachel holding me when I broke up with my first boyfriend, feeding me ice cream and telling me I deserved better. Rachel's face when she held my first baby, tears streaming down her cheeks as she whispered, "I'm an aunt. I'm really an aunt." How does that person become someone who steals from her dying mother? How does love turn into this kind of betrayal? Tom found me there, crying in what used to be Mom's bedroom. "She would be proud of you for fighting," he said softly, pulling me into his arms. "Your mom would be proud that you stood up for what was right." But would she? Or would Mom have been heartbroken that her daughters ended up in court, tearing apart the family she'd worked so hard to hold together? I haven't spoken to Rachel since the trial ended 6 months ago. She sent one email, not an apology but a justification. She wrote about how she'd always done more for Mom, how she'd been the successful one who made Mom proud, how she deserved more because her contributions had been greater. She actually wrote that as if love and care could be measured in dollar amounts and social status. As if the hours I spent holding Mom's hand meant nothing compared to Rachel's expensive gifts and weekend visits. I deleted the email. I blocked her number. I removed her from every social media platform. People tell me I should forgive her, that she's still my sister, that life is too short for grudges. But those people weren't there. They didn't watch their sister manipulate their dying mother. They didn't have to fight in court for what was rightfully theirs. They didn't have to accept that someone they loved was capable of such calculated cruelty. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to our channel. We share real stories about real families, about the complicated relationships that shape our lives. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light. Finding peace in the broken pieces. A year has passed since Mom died. The legal battles are over. The money is in my account and I've used some of it to set up a college fund for my kids. Something Mom would have loved. I kept some of her jewelry, including the pearl necklace Dad gave her on their anniversary, and I wear it on special occasions. When I touch those pearls, I feel close to her, to the mom who loved me unconditionally, not the confused, medicated woman Rachel took advantage of. Therapy has helped. I've learned that betrayal trauma is real, that losing your sister can hurt as much as losing your mother, that grief comes in waves and sometimes pulls you under when you least expect it. I've learned that you can love someone and never want to see them again. That you can miss who they used to be while hating who they became. That some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. My kids ask about their Aunt Rachel sometimes. They remember her from holidays, from birthday parties, from the time before everything fell apart. I don't lie to them, but I don't give them details either. Sometimes people make choices that hurt the people who love them, I tell them. And sometimes those choices mean relationships have to end. They're young, but they understand more than I give them credit for. They've stopped asking. The hardest part is the what-ifs that plague me late at night. What if I'd been more vigilant? What if I'd questioned Rachel's increased involvement sooner? What if I'd insisted on being present for every meeting with lawyers and doctors? Could I have prevented this? Could I have protected Mom? Could I have saved my relationship with my sister before it deteriorated into something ugly and unforgivable? My therapist says I need to let go of the what-ifs, that I did everything I could, that Rachel's choices were her own. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it in your heart are two different things. I still dream about Mom sometimes, about the three of us together before sickness and greed destroyed everything. In those dreams we're laughing whole, a real family. Then I wake up and the reality crashes over me again. But there are good moments too. I've reconnected with some of Mom's friends and they've shared stories about her that I'd never heard. I've found old letters she wrote to Dad before they were married, full of hope and love and dreams for the future. I've started volunteering at a hospice, helping other families navigate the impossible journey of losing someone they love. If I can use my pain to help someone else, maybe it means something. Maybe it gives purpose to this whole terrible experience. I've also learned who my real family is. Tom, who never wavered in his support. My kids, who gave me reasons to keep going when I wanted to give up. My friends, who listened to me cry and rage and grieve. The community that rallied around me when everything fell apart. Blood doesn't always mean family, and family doesn't always share your blood. That's a lesson I wish I'd learned under different circumstances, but it's a lesson I'll carry for the rest of my life. Mom used to say that the true measure of a person isn't what they do when everyone's watching, but what they do when no one would ever know. Rachel proved who she was in those final months of Mom's life, when she thought no one was paying attention, when she believed she could manipulate a dying woman without consequences. And I proved who I was too, someone willing to fight for what's right even when it meant losing my sister forever. The court exposed everything, just like the title of this story says. But more than that, it exposed us, who we really were beneath the sister act, beneath the childhood memories, beneath the illusion of family unity. And while the truth was devastating, there's something oddly freeing about finally seeing clearly, about not having to wonder or make excuses or convince myself that things were better than they actually were. I don't know if I'll ever fully heal from this. I don't know if the anger will ever completely fade, or if I'll always carry this weight of betrayal somewhere deep inside. But I'm trying. I'm showing up for my life, for my husband, for my kids. I'm honoring Mom's memory by being the kind of person she raised me to be, honest, caring, willing to fight for what matters. And if my story helps even one person recognize the signs of elder manipulation, if it encourages someone to stand up for their vulnerable loved one, if it reminds someone that fighting for justice is worth it even when it costs you everything, then maybe sharing all this pain serves a purpose after all. Subscribe to our channel for more stories like this one, stories about real people navigating impossible situations, about families fractured and sometimes healed, about the complicated truth of loving imperfect people in an imperfect world. Because we all have stories. We all have scars. And sometimes, knowing we're not alone in our pain is the first step toward healing. Mom would have wanted me to keep going, to build a good life despite this tragedy. So that's what I'm doing. One day at a time, one step forward, carrying her love with me and leaving Rachel's betrayal behind. It's not the ending I wanted for our family, but it's the ending we got. And somehow I'll find a way to make peace with that. If this story touched your heart or you've experienced something similar, please subscribe to our channel. We share real family stories every week. Stories of betrayal and redemption, loss and hope, endings and new beginnings. Your subscription helps us continue bringing these important voices to light. Thank you for listening to my story.